It's time for another design battle, and this time between two of the most potent mid-size sedans within the last 5 years. We're going to go over the base specs and then, of course, analyze both of these designs. I'm going to let you know which one I would personally buy, and you be the judge if I'm right or wrong. In the red corner, we have the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. It's powered by a Ferrari-derived twin-turbo V6 with 505 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque. This Italian beauty packs some punch. 0 to 60 is completed in a blistering 3.6 seconds with a top speed of 191 miles per hour. Base price for the Alfa, $73,500. In the blue corner, we have the Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG Sedan, the previous version. Now I'm gonna let you know why I chose the previous version for this matchup. Mercedes slaps 2 more cylinders in their engine with this twin-turbocharged V8, but its stable contains 2 horses less than the Alfa at 503 horsepower. However, you get more torque with the V8 at 516 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 is almost identical. It's 3.7 seconds, and the top speed is 180 miles per hour. Base price for the C63 sedan is the same as the Alfa at $73,500. So now, let the fight begin, and may the best design win. So comparing these two, let's start in the front view here. And the thing is, one is German, the other one is Italian. They should be very different in their design approach, but looking at these two, I honestly think that both of them are very elegant, graceful, and beautiful design. Even the Mercedes down here, which shouldn't really maybe be the case compared specifically comparing it to the Alfa Romeo, Italian, emotional, passionate, organic looking curves on the Alfa Romeo. Looking at it in the front view, what I can't understand with Alfa Romeo here, I know I always talk about line flow, so let's have a look at the Alfa Romeo here. We have the headlights, pretty big headlight here for the front face. It goes right in this line down here, and then you have it being sculpted to a very nice looking shape. It almost looks like an eyeball of or an eye of some animal, or maybe a bird or something like that. But then if we look at the line flow here, we have this line going into the grille, crashing into the side right here. Then we have this air intake down here also crashing into the side. It doesn't have a flow with the grille. We do have some flow right here going into this corner, and of course the body line on the hood going into the same corner and on the same other side as well, obviously, since it's a symmetrical front end. It seems as if all the lines in the front end are converging into this badge of Alfa Romeo, which is the grille, of course, in the middle. I think they've done a really good job keeping this grille since the early days of the company, and really implemented that and not going away from number one identifier in the front end, which is the triangular front shield. And now looking at the Mercedes down here, still I think the Mercedes is just a beautiful design. We have a lot of line flow in the grille going into the headlights down here as well, and then you have this chamfer underneath the headlight framing the headlight, and then it dips down like this. If you look at the details of the lines in the front end, you can see that this dips down a little bit here right before it meets the grille underneath, and I think it's just a beautiful looking design. The reason why I chose the previous generation C-Class here, I'm not a fan of the new C-Class, and I'm going to let you know why. So let's have a comparison between the 2021 and the 2020 right here. So why did I pick the 2020 over the 2021? The reason is very simple, and it mainly has to do with the grille. You see here we have a elegant grille. It's almost a smiling grille. It's graceful and it's beautiful. It doesn't have to be aggressive in every single model, at least not in my opinion. In the C-Class mid-size sedan, it can still have some gracefulness to it in the front end. But what they did for the 2020 model right here is they flipped this grille upside down. So now what we have, instead of having these lines going up like this in this angle, and then we have the lower part of the grille going in the opposite direction like this, creating sort of a bit of a dynamic movement of the graphic features in the front end. Same goes for the headlights and the lower part right here. What we have in the new generation is we have all these lines now going this way, and it creates a very heavy base looking face for the Mercedes. All the lines are now going in this angle, which creates a weight going down for some reason, and I'm not a fan of that specific feature, and that it has all to do with the grille. That's why I think the 2020 model looks and feels a lot more Mercedes, a lot more luxury, graceful than the new generation 2021. It kind of reminds me a little bit of one of these blobfishes. I also love the fact that Mercedes were using one LED right here, one daytime running light strip in the C-Class, and in the look at the E-Class at the time you had 2, and if you look at the S-Class you had 3. So you had a clear distinction at night which model you were looking at from the front view just by looking at the lights. Very cool design feature, I think, from Mercedes that I don't think that they have anymore in the new generations EC and S-Class. Now let's have a look at the rear view, and this is where I think you can definitely tell these two apart, being Italian versus German, because the Italian, it's all about the hips in the rear end. You can see that the Alfa here looks more planted. We're gonna see this when we look in the side view as well. It just feels more planted in the rear end, and it feels sharper and stronger in the rear. I also like that the taillights are horizontal more than vertical in this case, which if you look at the C-Class from 2021, the new version, it also had more of a horizontal treatment than we have right here. But I kind of like the C-Class taillights here as well. Big difference here, as I said, is if you look at the shoulder line here, you can see that it kind of dips down all the way, going from the front end right here, and then dips down, and then you have this line going up. It creates a very beautifully sculpted surface. I'm going to show you this more in the side view. In my opinion, the Mercedes looks a little weaker, but it's only for the sedan version. If you look at the coupe version, for example, it has the horizontal treatment in the taillights, and that looks way more planted, in my opinion, than the sedan. So if I were to buy the C63 AMG, I would go for the coupe version. The reason I'm doing the 4-door here is because the Alfa Romeo is, of course, only available as a 4-door sedan, which is kind of unfortunate because this would look really, really cool as a 2-door coupe. Maybe that's an idea for the Sketch Monkey channel. I also like the little quirks here. For example, you see the tailpipes, they don't sit in a perfect horizontal angle. They sit a little bit diagonal like this, and this also creates movement in the rear end and creates a little bit more dynamic feeling back there. You also have a very clear bumper, which I like. I don't like when bumpers turn into these weird looking shapes and surfaces. Just keep it simple and have a beautifully integrated diffuser down here to complete the overall look of the rear end, in addition to these taillights, which creates a very wide looking rear end when you stretch them out horizontally instead of having them be shorter and more squarish like this, for example. At the same time, looking at the Mercedes, I think the Mercedes is still a beautiful looking design. I really like the taillights here, even though that they don't emphasize the width of the car. They still look good. They look like it's part of this surface right here, like they're integrated in the body. You don't have the same kind of definition in this point right here because of the sloping rear end. However, the bumper still looks pretty defined down in the bottom with the integrated bumper down here in all black. We have a different kind of solution for the tailpipes right there compared to the Alfa, which are round and in an angle. The Mercedes are black, squarish, and in a perfectly horizontal setup. More German-like, I would say, in the rear end. Compare it to the Italian emotional, and then you have the more functional rear end or more structured rear end of the Mercedes. Both look really, really good in their own philosophy, but there are some key differences in the design for sure. Now let's look at the side view last but not least here, and this is where you can really tell these two apart, specifically looking in the rear end. This is where the differences are between Italian and German design. As you can see, the rear end of the Alfa is more upright in the rear end. We have this angle on the Mercedes. This, as I said, this line right here looks more beefy, and it emphasizes the rear wheel drive with this little curvature going above the rear axle that we don't really have on the Mercedes. The Mercedes still look, as I said, I really like both of these designs, and you have a clearly defined shoulder line, which I prefer over the Alfa, because the Alfa, if you look here, you have the hood sticking up a little too high, and then it looks a little bulky in the front end. And you don't really have a clearly defined shoulder line in the Alfa as you have in the Mercedes. And then you have this beautifully sculpted detail in the surfacing right here and also in the bottom, creating this planted look, even looking at it from the side view. Mercedes has two key lines that were very prominent for this generation C-Class. You can't really see them here, but you have this line going down, sloping like this, as I said before, I showed you in the rear view. Then you have this beautiful line right here, also going into the bumper. Two key lines that really identifies the Mercedes. The greenhouses look pretty similar in both of these cars. I like them both because we have a very, very thin A-pillar, creating a very light looking greenhouse. It doesn't look like the greenhouse is taking out too much weight visually, and it creates a very sporty looking design. And again, it helps with the plantedness of these two designs right here. Same thing with the Mercedes, very thin A-pillar in the front end, but it all comes back to the rear end here with the beefiness of the Alfa Romeo compared to the more elegant, less sporty rear end of the C-Class. So if I were to pick one of these, I think you know which one I would pick by just listening to this analysis of these two designs. I would definitely go, in this case, for the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. And the reason for that is not just the design, but here in the US, you rarely see these out on the streets. And I think it's a proper driver's car, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It has a little more power than the Mercedes, and it has a V6 instead of the Mercedes V8. But I really don't think that matters. When it comes to a pure driver's machine in this segment, the mid-size sedans, the winner for me is always gonna be the Alfa Romeo Giulia over the Mercedes C-Class. Now, I would love to know which one you would buy, and also, if you can, and if you want to, let me know why you would prefer either one of these in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Greta, Alfa Romeo or Mercedes, which one would you cruise to the beach in?